It may be that if he takes all of Donbass by conquest, that he might stop for a period. But he does not want a settlement. He doesn't want to have something that's negotiated by others. He wants capitulation. He wants Ukraine to say, I give it up, and to have that recognised. He doesn't want to have, he may play with the idea of President Trump getting the Nobel Peace Prize, but he doesn't want to give the benefit to anybody at all.
No.
This is for him. He sees himself as one of, the greats. And Russian tsars, if they have failed, have foundered. If you look back, the history of Russia is not one of, unbridled, success and conquest. You look back at some of the Russian leaders, particularly the two Nicholases, the first and the second. The first, Nicholas II, Nicholas I, that is, basically failed in the Crimean War.
Right.
I mean, he managed to retain, some of the territories, but it was a disaster for Russia, and it led, basically to Nicholas's demise and then a period of reform immediately after the 1850s. Nicholas II had two disasters in the Russo-Japanese War, where the entire Russian fleet was sunk. The Ukrainians have done a good job of sinking a lot of the Russian fleet by drones. This was sunk by the Japanese, who'd been waiting for him coming, and completely wiped out that fleet. And Russia actually had to turn to the United States and Teddy Roosevelt and others, at the time, to find a negotiated settlement, because it had lost that conflict. World War I, Russia lost it too. And just as World War I saw the collapse of the German monarchy, it saw the collapse of the Russian monarchy and revolution. Putin knows his history better than anybody else. He knows that if he fails, and he's already had one insurgency by Yevgeny Prigozhin, somebody that he kind of put in place, protesting the way that the war went, there are plenty of people in the Russian system who he has basically mobilized, who he has supported, these so-called nationalist, populist bloggers. It's just exactly the same thing that President Trump has to deal with here, when, there are people far out there who actually want him to do more than he's willing to go. That's the same for Putin. Putin could find himself, in really big trouble by, people being very dissatisfied with him making any kind of compromise and succession. He does not want to risk his position at all. He's quite comfortable with where he is right now.
If you had to describe the United States foreign policy under Trump towards Putin, is there any coherence to it at all?
Yeah, it's hyper-personalised. It's basically President Trump trying to get a grip on Putin, trying to kind of figure him out. Well, he thinks that Putin thinks like him, and in some respects he does. But Putin's more than that. For Putin, he sees himself as the inheritor and the current standard bearer of a millennia-old Russian state that goes back to a mythologizing of, kind of Kiev and Rus and all the rest of it. A lot of it is made up. But, it doesn't matter. Putin sees himself as the embodiment, literally, of that Russian statehood. Trump doesn't see himself as that. Trump is Trump. Everything that's happening is all about him.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with America. I mean, God knows what the 250th anniversary of, kind of American independence in the UK is going to look like. But for Putin, that symbolism matters. All you have to do is to go into the Kremlin and to see the way that he surrounds himself with statues of, Russian tsars and who he thinks he is in the pantheon of, which is all of those tsars with the appellate great. That's what he's thinking of. And he has an idea and a conception of the Russian state. President Trump doesn't have that.
But Trump thought somehow that Putin was interested in a deal. Turns out, no, he's not that interested.
Because it's not just about territory. It's not just about business. It's not just about billions, trillions. I mean, Putin has all of that at his fingertips. There's nothing that the United States can give him apart from the head of Vladimir Zelensky.